I'm a big believer in constantly learning, that you should always be, going to events, reading books, taking courses, constantly trying to improve skills and just kind of improve yourself in general. But maybe you've had this situation where maybe you're going to a conference, going to a live event, and you come away with pages and pages, maybe even a full notebook or a full workbook of takeaways and action items and key points that you want to remember and implement in your business and life, and hardly any of it actually happens. You get kind of overwhelmed, or you get and nothing makes progress, and you often forget about everything you learned. Well, in this episode of the podcast, I want to help give you a framework that's going to actually help you take action on all those valuable things that you're learning. I was recently at a mastermind event where one of my fellow mastermindees actually talked about a philosophy that they have, or a framework that they use to help make sure that things actually get done from the mastermind, and they use it whether this is a live event, whether it's reading books, whether it's going through a course. They constantly use this framework, and I thought it was such a great piece of advice that I wanted to share it with you here. I've started implementing it in my business, starting right away at that mastermind, and I've already seen great progress with it. So it is called the 12-3-1 framework, and basically what that looks like is from this mastermind. And I know I always sat down after, say, a live event. I would usually say an extra day, or on the plane ride home, I would go through and write down all my big takeaways and big action items. For me, that always looked like in my iPad, I'd just be making I'd make little box, and I'd usually have the ink be red, and those would be my key takeaways from the mastermind. Here, I'll actually even show you quickly what some of those kind of looks like. So you can even see here, and I would go through after the day's done, and I would go through and kind of create all the big takeaways. I'd still be writing them down, but then my action items would all be in red with a little box by them. Well, still go through that exact process. So go through all your notes, find some time, get some space after you say you finish an event or a book. Take some time, 30 minutes, maybe an hour, depending on how long the event was, and actually get some space from it and write down the key takeaways, the things that you want to remember afterwards. Go through, write down stuff that you've highlighted, and write down potential action items. But then you don't want to stop there. See, this is where this framework really comes in and has really helped me out, is you want to actually go through and identify the 12 things that you want to do, the 12 key takeaways, the 12 key action items, whatever it may be, but identify 12 items that you want to do. Then from there, look at those 12, separate them out, look at those 12, and identify the 3 things that you should be doing. And then lastly, go through those top 3. What is the one thing you must do right away, must do that week? By really drilling down and figuring out what that one item is, and actually taking action on that, taking action immediately that week on that item, you're going to be much more likely to actually implement it and get something out of that live event, rather than just a notebook that you end up throwing in the closet and forgetting about months later. Don't ask me how I know about that. But by focusing in on that one thing, it's kind of a great analogy that this actually, the person in our mastermind, Scott, actually used, was analogy of bowling. So imagine you are, bowling. I'm not a very good bowler at all, but you want to actually aim for that lead pin, that pin right out in front, because if you hit that lead pin, then you're going to be more likely to hit the next 3 pins. And then if you hit the next 3 pins, you're going to be more likely to hit the next 12 pins and then knock down all the pins. So that's kind of the way of really thinking about this philosophy, is if you can knock down that one lead action item, you're going to be much more likely to eventually knock down that 3 action items, and then knock down the other 9 items that are that you wrote down as key takeaways from there. And just imagine the difference it's going to make in your business. Just imagine the growth you're going to receive by actually implementing. Even if you only got to that one item, the change would be significant. If you are reading one book a year or one book a month, that's 12 key action items, 12 of the most important takeaways from those books that you're actually implementing in your business, and the results you're going to get from that are going to be pretty incredible. So 12, 3, 1. Remember that and start using it as you go through your courses, go through reading books, or attending live events. And by actually focusing in and getting very narrow and focused in your action items, you're going to see bigger progress than you've ever seen before. So that's it for this episode of the podcast. And until next week, it's time for you to go out there, take action, and maximize your impact and your income. And thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the podcast. Hopefully you got some great value from it. We're going to be doing a few more of these mini episodes here and sprinkling them in every so often throughout the podcast here. And so hopefully you're getting a ton of value from them. And if you are ready to make that jump into starting your own podcast and are just not quite sure where to start, go text the word podcast blueprint. That's one word, podcast blueprint, to 33444. That's 33444, the word podcast blueprint. And I'll send you over my podcasting blueprint PDF that kind of walks you through all the steps needed to really get started. And also, if you were looking to find all of the episodes of the Power of Podcasting, simply head on over to powerofpodcasting.tv and you'll find all the episodes linked up there. And if you have not done so yet, please go subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and please leave a rating and a review, because rating and reviews are the best way for more people to find out about this podcast and decide if this is the one for them. Well, all right, until next week, it's time for you to go out there, take action, and maximize both your impact and your income.